Welcome to Down The Sideline. This is the show where you, the viewer, can win your free AM Crunch Wrap from Taco Bell.
I want to get a code, like for real. I want to get like a code somewhere and then like put it in the chat, and somebody has to like claim it and see if anybody does.
Kev is out this week. He's got to work again. Chef, games from last week.
Games from last week. We had TCU, Oklahoma, Michigan State, Ohio State, UCLA, Utah, and Baylor, Oklahoma State. Mike was 1 for 3. I was 2 for 2. Ope and Kev were both 3-1.
How was the poll from last week?
Poll from last week, we had 7 votes, 4 for Baylor, 3 for Oklahoma State. So it was pretty split, pretty even.
I want to move on to the comments. I want to talk about Thomas Clark. He put some thought into this. He says, shocked you didn't pick the LSU Ole Miss game. Not a big deal. My top 4. Alabama, I don't care about records, the best team in the country, hands down. Clemson, not sure how I feel about the team, but the defense is nasty. I agree with him on that. Iowa for now. Don't like them to be there at the end of the year. Notre Dame, as much as I hate them, they're winning games, even though they should have lost last week. 3-4 will change. But I wanted to put that in there because he put some thought and some stuff into his top 4. That's a pretty good top 4. And it will be an interesting selection, so I agree with him for that.
It's set up right now to be like virtually impossible to guess who's going to be in, because Iowa is going to play Michigan State more than likely, so there's going to be some swapping there. Alabama's going to play Florida, so there could be potential some swapping there. It's like Oklahoma State, potential some swapping there. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. Sheesh.
The next comment I wanted to do is Dogged. I like his comments. They're different. He says, I know Pat Hayden is slightly retarded when it comes to hiring coaches and mostly everything else since he's been the athletic director. So do you think he will continue the trend of trying to find the Pete Carroll era magic, or come to his senses and hire who recruits and players think is the right guy for the job, Clay Helton? Now, if you don't know, Pat Hayden is the athletic director for USC. Clay Helton is the interim head coach since the drunk guy got fired, whatever his name was. Sarkisian. Yeah. And my thoughts on it, I said, I think Helton is doing a good job. He took over. The team started winning. They were playing better. They looked better. But they ran into Oregon, they've been playing like their hair's on fire. That is not the same Oregon team that we seen at the first of the year, who I was talking so much shit about. And I think USC come out flat. They were confused. They didn't know what was going on. There was wide open receivers going down the field. They couldn't keep up with the speed of Oregon and all the receivers and this stuff. And I think before they knew it, the game was out of hand and all the confidence was gone, and that was it. But on the other end of that, I mean, who are they going to get? What elite coaches are they going to find out there? I think they might as well just stick with the same guy. I mean, you don't go, oh, he played so good. Oh, man, they got their ass beat by Oregon. Kick his ass to the curb. We'll get somebody else.
I think for the USC job, if Clay Helton wins this game this week, he's got the job. If not, it's a little bit up in the air, especially with the talent that's coming out for coaches. Like if Les Miles goes, if the Georgia coach goes, and it's like all these potential coaches are coming available. I think they're going to go after somebody a little bit bigger. But if he wins this week, he stays. But at the same time, they're going to be on a time schedule because he's going to get opportunities to go elsewhere, and they don't want to lose him. So I think they'll more than likely stay with Hayden, or stay with Helton for at least a year or two, just to see what he can do. Give him a shot, because he hasn't done bad since he's been there. He lost a couple of games, but he's also won a huge game against the number 3 Utah. So I think it's going to be his shot at next year at least.
I hope they at least give him a 1-year deal or something. I don't really know how that works in college with recruiting, but
it's like, well, the players responded to him tremendously. It's like, just give him a shot. Players like him. He's done decent for the school so far in the short time he's been there. Let's see what he can do whenever he's got full control. Just give it to him.
I like what Notre Dame does. Notre Dame signs people to 3-year contracts. Let's get to this week's games.
We're going to do Baylor TCU.
Let's do it.
All right. Hope you want to go first since this is your baby.
Well, is Boykin playing? If he ain't playing, then this isn't even going to be a game, I don't think. I mean, TCU's defense played good in the fourth quarter last week against Oklahoma, I guess. And
yeah, it says as of right now, he practiced Sunday, and they're optimistic that he'll start, and they're going to It says probable for Friday.
I'm still taking Baylor. Even if he's not 100%, that team is not that good.
I'm going to agree with Ope. I think Baylor wins. Oklahoma State has a way better defense than TCU does, significantly better, and Baylor just trounced them. I don't know what Oklahoma State's issue was, but it didn't matter. Baylor comes in and just plays them like it was Oklahoma State of past, where just, okay, we're just going to beat you and move on to next week. And I think Baylor's going to do that, but even worse, TCU. TCU doesn't have the defense to stop Baylor. No way.
I'm going to agree there, and I think this is the first time all season that I've picked Baylor to beat anybody. Oh, hell. Who did, let me see. Who's doing Kevin this week?
Oh, I could do Kevin.
Okay, be Kevin.
All right, since I got his upset last week, where we at? He said, my pick is Baylor, and then he also added, I didn't have time to elaborate more than this on my dinner break. So he's picking Baylor. He's thinking, even though Johnson came in as a third-string quarterback, they're going to be just like Ohio State last year, come out and torch TCU. Same thing as with what I said. TCU just didn't have the defense to stop them, contain them, and Baylor's just going to run all over them. They're actually going to run all over them. Because they got tiny linebacker.
I'm still not on board with this Baylor running game. It trips me out. I feel like the fucking Twilight Zone or something. It's so weird.
Well, it's because here, let me tell you why you feel like that. Because whenever you see highlights of Baylor, it's always in throwing these deep passes. But since RG3 was there, they've been a run-first team to set up the pass.
The run-first team? Oh, dude, don't be blowing smoke up my ass and piss down my back and call me it's fucking raining. You're a run-first team? Oh, Lord.
Yeah, they use the run to set up the pass. I'm telling you, that's how it is.
Anyway, what's the next game?
Next game, we got Florida State at Florida. Kev picks Florida. Same thing as Walger, didn't have anything to elaborate. He just thinks that they got a solid defense, even though they did go into overtime last week. They're going to be able to shut down Florida State, and Florida State still is not up in the air on who their quarterback's going to be. I mean, Golson didn't even play last week. They went ahead and went with the other guy. So he's taking Florida. He thinks their defense is going to be enough to slow down Florida State. I'm speaking for the man. If I go ahead and do mine, I'm actually taking Florida State. And that's because Florida went into overtime against FIU. Really, a team that was 96 or 98% chance to lose that game, and they went to overtime and barely won that game. Florida is not a good team. I don't know why they have only lost one game. They have no offense. They're like Northwestern was to me at the beginning of the year. Their defense is good for the most part, but they have no offense. No, I can't even tell you a guy on their team other than the quarterback, which was Harris, and then the other guy that got suspended. Other than that, not a clue. Florida State's going to go into Florida. It's the rivalry game, and they're going to show Florida what's up and knock Florida out of contention for the playoff. Did
you just talk shit about the Florida Atlantic Owls?
I did about Florida. I talked up the Florida Atlantic Owls. I say AFIU instead of FAU. My bad, Owls. Hoo.
Freaking Owl Nation.
Owl Nation represent.
I'm going to take Florida in this one. They're playing at home. I'm a big proponent of playing at home. The Swamp is not an easy place to go in and win a game. They had a really bad game against FIU. I kind of see that as, that's freaking Florida Atlantic. We can come out here and go half speed. We don't got to put out a lot of effort. They're just going to freaking, lay over and let us win. That's not what happened. Florida's faced some better competition than I think that Florida State has. And of course, here of late, they haven't been playing very good. They had that really shitty 9-7 win over Vanderbilt. They've beat a Missouri team that was pretty good in Missouri. They beat an Ole Miss team that's pretty good. Winning to South Carolina. Of course, South Carolina's not all that great. But in a pretty close game against LSU, I just don't know. I don't really know what weapons that, Florida State's really got.
I think Vegas having this as a coin flip game and Florida playing at home is already a sign. I'm also taking Florida State. You kind of echoed on this, Mike. The last 3 games for Florida, they played Vanderbilt and won 9-7, kicking a field goal in the last 2 minutes to win that one. South Carolina, the game was 17-14 in the fourth quarter when they scored the last touchdown to put them up by 10. It was a lot closer than the score showed. They won against Florida Atlantic in overtime. And I think that Cook rushes for 200-plus yards this week and torches Florida's defense. I mean, they gave up a lot of yards to Fournette whenever they played LSU. I think Cook is just as explosive. He's not as big, but I think he's faster. I think that Florida State has a big game, and I think they win. I think they win by 10 plus.
What's our next game?
We got Notre Dame at Stanford.
I'm going to pick Stanford. Why? I've been talking shit about Notre Dame all year. I'm not a big Notre Dame fan. Kind of like Chef was saying about Florida. I don't know why Florida's so high, he was saying. I don't know why Notre Dame's so high. I really don't. I think Stanford's a good team, a really good team. I don't know anybody on that Notre Dame team. I think I hated their schedule. Like, I'm a big schedule person. Like, schedule some people.
While you're pulling up the schedule, they only got one quality loss.
They have a Who? Notre Dame?
Yeah, they lost to Clemson by 2, so they got ranked because of that.
Ah, well, maybe that's what it is. At least Stanford's played some people.
Oh, who you taking?
I'm taking Stanford for 2 reasons. McCaffrey, for one, and I just think Stanford's better. That's combo 1. And number 2 is that I just do not, under any circumstances, want to see Notre Dame in the playoffs.
That is a good enough reason if I've ever heard one.
I would rather see 2 SEC teams in there than Notre Dame. Not only am I wanting Stanford to win, I need them to win.
Kevin's going to pick Notre Dame. He likes Kaiser. He's liked him all season long. He likes what he could do as such a young quarterback throwing into the thick of things. I think he was the backup to start the season, and he's led him to victories throughout the year thus far. So he's done pretty good. Process has been a pretty good running back, even though he is injured. And Fuller, a really good receiver. He thinks that Notre Dame's going to take over the game and shut down the running game for Stanford and come out with the win.
That's a bold pick. That's bold.
I, however, disagree. I think Stanford. Notre Dame is way too injured, man. Way too injured. They just lost another one of their starting cornerbacks for the year. Process is potentially going to play. Without him, you have a quarterback to 1 receiver combo, and that's not going to work all game long, especially whenever you don't have the potential for a big running game going. I think Stanford's been lighting it up, been tearing it up, and just running away with pretty much all their games. Since the loss, even though they did lose a close one to Oregon. Oregon's been playing a lot better than they were at the start of the year. I think Stanford's going to come out and finally give Notre Dame the loss that they've been so close to getting all year, but not, and it's going to knock Notre Dame probably out of the top 10. Notre Dame going down this week.
You know, I was thinking, it's been the strength of Stanford for a long time is their offensive line and the way they really have probably one of the best offensive lines in the country. How's Notre Dame's defensive line? I mean, when Stanford runs up there and does the whole double tight thing, I mean, they're going to be able to stand toe-to-toe and do that?
I think also, real quick, let me make sure before I say this. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this is Notre Dame's last game of the season, and they don't have a conference championship. So not only do I think they need to win, I think they need to win big in order to stay in the top 4 for the selection committee, because they don't play. They're going to play 1 less game than the other teams, and they're not in a conference. So I think for Notre Dame, even if they win, I think they need to win big to kind of, since they're not going to have another game, another tough game either.
We better hope that Clemson doesn't lose, Alabama doesn't lose, Oklahoma doesn't lose, and Michigan State doesn't lose, because then we're gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
It's like I don't think Notre Dame would make it though, because like Ope said all year long, their best loss is to the number 1 Clemson team. Georgia Tech's fallen off the face of the earth. Temple has lost a couple of games in a row, and now they're not even ranked anymore. It's like, where's your quality win at? Like, for real. And it would be Stanford who fell when they lost to Oregon, so it's like they don't really have a shot. Even if they do win, they're still not going to be in the top 4 at the end of the year. There's no way.
What's our next game?
Next game is Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, the Bedlam game. Mike, you want to go last on this one?
Sure.
All right, I'll pick for Kevin, and then Ope will go, and then I'll go, and then you'll go. How's that?
Cool.
Okay. Kev's taking Oklahoma. Just Oklahoma State. They got exposed last week to Baylor, and they're just not going to be able to keep up with old P. Ryan running the ball. I mean, they're going to struggle. They haven't really faced a team that runs the ball a whole heck of a lot, or as good as the Sooners. And with
what are you talking about? They just faced Baylor.
I think with Baker Mayfield coming back and hopefully being in top form and being the quarterback, then he's gonna be lights out. I mean, he's been lights out all year long. The only game they didn't score, or one of the only games that they didn't score over 30 points, was TCU when he got injured. So I think Oklahoma's gonna come out and get the win. Or Kevin does, my bad. Kevin does.
It sounded like that was your pick also.
We'll find out after your pick.
Well, I don't think that Oklahoma State loses back-to-back games at home. So I'm taking Oklahoma State. I think that it would be hard for me to see this being the case, but I think that they kind of were looking past Baylor. They saw OU beat Baylor pretty good, and I think they were kind of looking past Baylor to OU this week. I don't know, has Mayfield even passed the concussion protocol yet?
Yeah, they said it passed it today.
But I think that he's got his bell rung last week. I don't know, maybe he takes another shot and he's a little gun shy. But I'm taking Oklahoma State.
I'm taking Oklahoma. I think Baker Mayfield's going to come out and do what he's done all year long. He lost to a Texas team, and he's not going to have that happen again. This is the chance to solidify themselves as a top contender for the committee, and they need to have this win. Like, even though Oklahoma State's going to drop a little bit, still beating 3 ranked teams at the end of the season. 4 overall is going to be a huge boost for the Big 12 and Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma's got pretty much the only shot to make it for the Big 12, and they have so much riding on this game that they're actually going to come out and win it, even in hostile territory.
This is a tough one for me. I like Oklahoma State's defense. Probably right there with Oklahoma's for the best in the Big 12, for whatever that's worth. I love their secondary. Okay, and I know Baylor kind of showed them up a little bit. You might as well flip a coin and one side's heads and the other side's heads. That's what I feel about TCU and Baylor. The only thing that's different is their colors, and one's in Fort Worth, one's in Waco. Other than that, they're both the same team in my eyes. You know, they come out and they played good in that game. They didn't play like that when they were playing Baylor. And I kind of want Oklahoma to win because I don't want them to lose, because I feel that they're one of the better teams in the country, because I don't want them to lose and then all of a sudden we get some other team in there that I don't want to see in the playoffs. Kind of, like I don't want to see them in there either. Like I really don't. And being non-biased and trying to pick games for games, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to pick Oklahoma State on this one.
Me and Mike against the world.
Because I think if they can limit some of that stuff, I don't know who their big receivers for Oklahoma.
Sterling Shepard, he's got a third of the receptions, or a third of the yards. He got 10. He's got a third of the touchdowns also.
But I don't know, has he faced anybody that's like Kevin Peterson? That's Oklahoma State's like best corner.
All right, on to the game of the week, Ohio State at Michigan.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not as intrigued about this game this week as I was last week.
Are you going to elaborate besides that they lost the game?
Well, since Ohio State lost, I mean, I think they're going to fall hard. Last week, if you look at it, you see that you could have Michigan playing Ohio State in the rivalry game. Ohio State's undefeated. They're trying to get back to the conference championship game, get back to the playoff, and now it's just, I think Ohio State's done. I don't think there's any way they get into the playoffs.
Just because of one loss? I don't know about that.
Well, because of how weak their schedule is. They've only played one team this year, and they lost. They've played one average team this year, and they lost. I mean, their schedule is as weak as we've seen until the last 2 games of the season. And they're not going to get a conference championship game to prove that they're better than that. So I guess I can go ahead and pick mine. I guess I'll take I think Ohio State bounces back and wins. I think Ezekiel Elliott will probably get about 35 carries, and he's not going to be telling the reporters afterwards that he needed the ball.
It is a plus. But no, Opie, that's where I think you're wrong. I think if we're going to have human people sit down in a room and go, okay, blah, blah, here's the teams that we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. I think absolutely you could look and go, okay, not that I'm saying Michigan should be in the Final Four or whatever, but I think absolutely you should look at Michigan and go, okay, they lost to Michigan, but it was kind of on like a silly play, a botched snap. If we're not going to do that, let's just load all the stats and all the stuff into the computers and just let that do it, and then have a coach's poll. And then have, the writers somewhere, just that's what the AP poll is, just a bunch of writers, a bunch of geeky dudes in glasses sitting around on a typewriter. Let's let them pick the people that go in there. We'll average the 3 together and get the BCS rankings, because that's what those are.
But I think the difference is that you would say that you shouldn't count as much of a loss to Michigan because they lost on a bad play. But in the same hand, you'd have to take points away from Michigan State for winning that game on a play like that, and you can't do that. You can't say you can't penalize them for a win. But I mean, both teams played as hard as they could and tried to win. They both had a chance to win the game at the end. And that's what happened. I mean, it sucks. I cannot believe that they lost that way. You would have to also discount the win for Michigan State, and you can't discount the win.
You can discount the win because it happens all the time. You can absolutely say, well, they won that game, but they probably shouldn't have.
But you discount the win whenever it's against a bad team.
You don't discount it by taking it away, but you say it's not, in your mind it ain't worth as much. And that's what the people do, and they sit around and make all these rankings.
I think that it applies if you have a team like when Auburn almost lost to Jacksonville State Penitentiary, whatever it was, at the beginning of the season. That right there would be a bad win. But I think when you have two ranked teams playing each other, that it's hard to penalize one or the other because they're both supposed to be good teams and it's supposed to be a close game. And I think it kind of eliminates that you expect it to be close to the end.
Okay, for Kevin's pick, he's going to take Michigan as well. Ohio State coming off a tough loss. They're going to be some infighting. They're like Ezekiel Elliott's are like pissed off at the coaches, even though they quote unquote squashed it in house. I mean, he's going pro. More than likely, he's pretty much confirmed it. They're not going to play for conference championship without some magic. So I think Kevin thinks Michigan's going to come out and win. Harbaugh is going to get a huge victory against Ohio State to end his season.
This is a tough one for me as well. The big house, Michigan, that's a tough place to play. Both of these coaches are really good coaches, and I think Urban Meyer probably will turn his team around. If he's not the play caller, and he'll probably change the way he's called that last game, or if it was the offensive coordinator calling the plays, he probably had a little, mafia style sit down with his offensive coordinator and said, look, you can't do that again. There's good athletes on both sides. I just think Ohio State's got more athletes, and I think if they'd have used them, they probably would have beat Michigan State. And so I'm gonna pick Ohio State on this one.
I'm actually gonna take Michigan in this one. This game has humongous implications for the Big Ten because if Michigan State somehow loses to Penn State, whoever wins this game is going to the conference championship. And it could be either one of them. This is a humongous game. It's not just a run-of-the-mill, all right, let's play this game and end our season. We're going to come out. Both sides are going to be firing. Both sides are going to be gunning for it, man. They both want to win just in case there is that chance. There is a chance they could still make it. And they're going to come out and try to prove something. I think Harbaugh's going to have his guys ready, and they're going to come out and shut down Elliott and whatever quarterback Ohio State throws at them. They've done great all season long on shutting down quarterbacks. They have the loss to Utah start the season before we knew anything about them, and then the loss to Michigan State on a punt fluke. Other than that, their golden quarterback has played out of his mind. It's going to be a great game. That's why we're picking this as our game of the week. It's going to be a shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a Big 12 type shootout, but I think Michigan's defense is going to be a little bit better than Ohio State's, and they're going to come out on top.
Yeah, let's do our top six.
On to the top six. You want me to go ahead and do Kev's?
Yeah, go ahead.
Kevin, his top six are Clemson, Alabama, Iowa, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Oklahoma. And mine this week, since I'm talking, I got Clemson, Alabama, Iowa number 3, Oklahoma number 4. I still don't give Notre Dame the credit that people think they should have. And Oklahoma beating up on TCU is just going to help propel them a little bit higher. Notre Dame, number 5, and then Baylor back at the number 6 slot after they took out Oklahoma State.
I have Clemson at number 1, just like everybody else in the world. Number 2, I have Alabama. I moved them up 1 slot because Ohio State lost. At number 3, I have Oklahoma. I moved them up from the 6th spot to the 3 slot because we had some losses. I have Michigan State at number 4. I still think they're a pretty good team. At 5, I have Ohio State. I know they got 1 loss. It was an ugly loss against Michigan State, but still, we got Alabama. They got a 1 loss. They lost a 3-loss Ole Miss team. So if they can be number 2, why can't Ohio State be number 5 and be, where they're at, only drop a few places, playing against Michigan State. So that's my thoughts on that. At number 6, I have Baylor. Because I said before, whenever they play somebody, I will move them up a little more.
You talk about Iowa getting hammered. I'm not buying this Clemson team. I mean, I have them number 1 also. I think they're the team that if they make it to the playoffs, I think they get hammered in their first game by whoever the number 4 team is. Doesn't matter if it ends up being Alabama, Ohio State, any of these teams in the top 10, I think Clemson loses to whoever it is. Unless it happens to be Notre Dame. I think that Clemson has played really good this year, and they've won a lot of big games. They beat Florida State. and they beat Georgia Tech, I believe, and they've won some good big games. They beat Notre Dame, but I don't think that whenever you play one of these other teams that's been there before, and that I just don't think that they're going to beat one of the top 4 teams in the playoffs. I think whoever they play in the first game, they get beat by. It's kind of going to be kind of like the Florida State game was last year. I just don't think they're that good. But I think on paper they look really good. I just don't think that they're going to be there. But I guess I'll leeway into my top 6, 7, whatever we have here. I have Clemson number 1. I have Alabama at number 2. You laughing at me because of Alabama?
No, I'm laughing at Brohawk. Better than saying Baylor for all slots 1 through 25.
Number 3, I have Iowa, even though I don't really like them either, and I don't want them to end up there. I think that they've earned the number 3 spot. Number 4, I have Baylor, and the reason why I moved them above OU is because OU struggled against a second and third string quarterback at TCU, regardless whether Mayfield was out. They won because TCU lost, not getting the 2-point conversion. And they lost to Texas earlier in the year, and I think that Baylor's only loss is a good loss to OU. So I have them ahead of Baylor. I had them ahead of OU. I have OU number 5, Michigan State number 6, and Notre Dame number 7.
All right, the poll for this week is going to be Ohio State and Michigan. Link will be in the description. Go down there, click on that, and vote for who you think is going to win the Down the Sideline game of the week. All right, that's going to do it for Down the Sideline. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with Down the Sideline or the Subscriber Dynasty, follow myself or Little Chef on Twitter. We all have jobs and stuff, and so it's all the times are tentative whenever we get off work or whatever. So that's the best way to find out when we're going to go live on Twitch. Because the YouTube version is hugely edited down. Like, we've been rolling for, I'm just going to take a guess and say like a couple hours or more, at least. And all this is cut down to like 20 minutes. There's all kinds of stuff you missed out on, all the inside jokes about AM Crunch Wraps and OP giving free financial advice. Yes, because he does. That's what he does. But follow us on Twitter so you can come and join. It's everybody has a good time and having fun over here. All right, I appreciate everybody watching. We'll see you guys next time with Down the Sideline.
Later, guys.
Deuces.
Toodles.